This is the MMA Brief Podcast, recapping the world of mixed martial arts every single week, with your host, Brandon Johansson.
Welcome back to the MMA Brief Podcast. I was gone for a second, now I'm back again. We're just going to get right into it with UFC Fight Night 99 and 100, which took place on the same night in a span of 12 hours across the map from Brazil to Ireland, which essentially boiled down to two meaningless rematches between first Gegard Mousasi and Uriah Hall. Their first fight, Uriah Hall secured probably one of the biggest upsets of the year in 2015 when he beat Gegard Mousasi with a spinning back kick, followed up by a sensational flying knee, and ground and pound got the TKO victory in the second round. Huge upset. Gegard has been on a tear since, while Uriah Hall has been in the opposite direction, hasn't won a fight since. Gegard came out, first round, TKO of Uriah Hall, ground and pound. Took him down and kind of got him in the wrist lock position against the cage and beat him until the referee stopped it. I think that most people knew that Gegard was the more well-rounded middleweight. However, Uriah Hall has that one shot, change the complexion of a fight ability. So you didn't really know what was going to happen, but you did. And Gegard got the win, avenged his last loss. So now he's looking very good in the middleweight division. The other main event from UFC Fight Night 100 from Brazil was Ryan Darth Bader versus Rogério Lil Nog Nogueira. One thing that bothered me about this fight, well, a lot of things did, but am I the only one who's getting sick and tired of Jon Anik's overpronunciation of last names? I mean, it started with Rousimar Palhares, which most people refer to him online as Paul Harris, because he's got a difficult to pronounce name. No one wanted to spell out Rousimar Palhares. Anyway, Jon Anik goes above and beyond and starts referring to him as Rousimar Palhares. And I'm like, really? Everybody's been calling him Rousimar Palhares forever. And now all of a sudden he's Rousimar Palhares. So anyway, he starts calling Nogueira something else, like Nogueira. Like, he just was douching it up. And Brian Stann refused, thank goodness, to fall under Jon Anik's peer pressure, and he continued to call him what we've been calling him for years, and that is Rogério Nogueira. He wasn't pronouncing the G. He was pronouncing it weird, and it pissed me the fuck off. But that wasn't the only thing. Bader, top 3 in the top 4, maybe. I don't care what the rankings say. But he's definitely up there with Daniel Cormier, Rumble Johnson, John Jones. Other than that, there's not a lot of contention in that light heavyweight division. Bader just beat the crap out of him. It was actually really sad to watch. So it was a rematch from many years ago when Bader was a young up-and-coming fighter. He got the win over Nogueira. He gets another win over Nogueira, and it was sad to watch. It wasn't. I turned it off, and that's when I eventually saw the best fight of the night, which just so happens, in between 12 hours of UFC programming, Bellator has an incredible main event. Fight of the Year candidate between Michael Chandler and Benson Henderson. First of all, before I tell you who won the fight, if you are under the notion that Benson Henderson is washed up and he's not a real fighter, you're an idiot. This guy is a fucking glutton for punishment. He took so much fucking damage. It was insane. Michael Chandler suplexed him onto his fucking head in the first round. He beat the crap out of Benson Henderson. He had Benson Henderson. If he was a lesser fighter, they would have been out of there. He's got no quit in him. I really do feel that if you don't like Benson Henderson, you don't really appreciate what he brings to martial arts. He is such a fucking warrior. He ended up losing this fight to Michael Chandler by split decision for the Bellator 155-pound championship, and it's actually his second loss out of 3 fights since he came over to Bellator from UFC. Disappointing for sure, but don't ever count Benson Henderson out. And there's argument. Obviously, he lost by split decision rather, but there's argument that he won the fight. He always does that, and he did that against Frankie. He did it against Gilbert Melendez. He just has a way of, you don't quite know who won that fight. Who the fuck won that fight? And most of the time, Benson Henderson wins those fights. This was a different, ending for him. I thought it was one of those Benson Henderson's close call. He'd give it to him. But it was for the title. It was Michael Chandler's title. And at the end of the day, the judges didn't think Benson did enough to take that title. Excellent fight, though. And it just blew my mind that there were so many fights on that Saturday, which would have been 2 weeks ago now. And Bellator put on the best fight out of all the fucking 12 hours of UFC. So coming up, UFC 206, there has been a shakeup. Light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier has injured his groin and will no longer be defending his title against Anthony Rumble Johnson in Toronto. So a huge turn of events here. You got the co-main event sliding up into the main event slot. That's Max Holloway versus Anthony Pettis in a featherweight showdown. So once Daniel Cormier gets injured, the UFC, I believe, felt pressure to make Anthony Pettis versus Max Holloway more exciting than it already is. So they decide to strip Conor McGregor of his featherweight title. Now, Jose Aldo is the interim champion with his win over Frankie Edgar at UFC 200. So they already have an interim champion. They strip Conor of his featherweight championship. Now the interim champion, Aldo, is the champion. So it's confusing, I know. Max Holloway versus Anthony Pettis is the new main event of UFC 206 in Toronto, and it will be for the interim featherweight championship. The winner of that will fight Aldo in a unification bout. So a little bit of a shakeup. People are disappointed. Daniel Cormier injured out of his second fight of 2016. He's been injured twice now and had to pull out of main event slots. Also on UFC 206, we got Donald Cowboy Cerrone, who was originally supposed to fight at UFC 205. His opponent, Calvin Gastelum, was overweight, didn't even attempt to make weight. That's interesting, and it'll come back in a second here. But Cowboy Cerrone, originally supposed to fight at UFC 205, the greatest card that UFC's ever done, and his opponent didn't make weight. He's now fighting Matt the Immortal Brown in Toronto. And that's on December 10th, UFC 206. Just a little over a week away. Tim Kennedy is now fighting Donald Cowboy Cerrone's original opponent, Calvin Gastelum. Calvin Gastelum was suspended by the New York State Athletic Commission for not attempting to make weight for 60 days. It's now been cleared up, and he is a go to fight Tim Kennedy in a middleweight bout at UFC 206. Interesting, because he was supposed to fight Cowboy at welterweight. After he missed weight at welterweight, which would have been his 4th time now, Dana White said, listen, you're not fighting at 170 anymore. So now he's fighting Tim Kennedy at 185, which Tim Kennedy is a training partner of Donald Cerrone. Interesting. It's all very interesting. It's going to be a very good card. I don't really think they needed to strip Conor of his 145-pound belt just to make this main event more attractive. I was very excited. Anthony Pettis is a great fighter. Max Holloway is a great fighter. And those 2 fights I just mentioned make it worth the price of admission. Last week, we had Derek Brunson versus Robert Whittaker in Australia. Turned out to be an amazing main event after a lackluster, some would say, overall card. A lot of decision finishes. I believe it was 7 straight at one point. But Robert Whittaker versus Derek Brunson did not disappoint. It's a first-round TKO win for Robert Whittaker. Derek Brunson just came forward with his hands down, just pressing the action, looking for takedowns, looking for big shots mostly. He was leaving his face exposed, I believe, so he could try to land these unorthodox, just punch you in your face, get you up against the cage, maybe sneak a takedown in there if it was available. Didn't quite work out against Robert Whittaker. And Derek Brunson, who was coming off of 4 straight first-round knockouts in the middleweight division, now suffers a setback. And Robert Whittaker, these were the number 6 and 7 guys in the middleweight division. So Robert Whittaker just underneath Anderson Silva right now in the middleweight rankings. He's going to look at a big fight. I heard Chris Weidman say that he's interested in fighting Robert Whittaker now. So, excellent fight and huge implications for the winner. And I don't think that Derek Brunson falls that far behind. Definitely not out of the top 10 after that loss. He's going to go back, restructure his game plan. If you watch the fight, you know that he was throwing 3 sheets to the wind. He was just reckless out there. But it had got him the victory because he just swarmed people, overwhelmed them, and that's how he had knocked out a lot of guys. Great fight last week. Last night, on the Ultimate Fighter season finale, Tim Elliott versus Hero. Loved both these guys ever since the first episode of the season. I'd liked Tim Elliott before that when he was in the UFC. They were the guys that I wanted to see in the finale, and they ended up being in the finale. And I just said, you know what, whoever wins, I'm happy with it. Tim came out, brought the fight. Hero's tough as nails. It was competitive. They were both looking to finish pretty much every single second, or fighting for a position to get to finish. Tim Elliott gets the decision win, and he will fight Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson this Saturday. 2 days away, he's going to fight for the flyweight title against arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Such huge stakes in that tournament, and he just beat 4 high-level 125-pound fighters to earn this title shot. I think he's going to be better because of that experience. I don't think he took awful lot of damage in those fights, and I don't know if he has what it takes to beat Demetrius Johnson, but I'm excited. He's unpredictable. He's weird. He's unorthodox, and I can't wait. Saturday also, the coaches from this season, Joseph Benavidez and Henry Cejudo, will square off in the co-main event. That one's going to be great. That one's going to be really fucking good. Because Joseph Benavidez and Henry Cejudo, they don't like each other. They do not like each other one bit. Oh, man, don't blink when that one starts. I really think it's going to be a fast-paced fight. I think Cejudo is going to let his emotions get the best of him, honestly. I think that Joseph Benavidez was able to get into his head all season long. And Cejudo was constantly wondering, what's Benavidez thinking about me? You know, and he's like, man, this one's personal. I'm going to knock him out. Cejudo's, you know, a great wrestler, Olympic wrestler. I don't really think, you know, I'm not saying he doesn't have great striking. I don't know if he has what it takes to go in there and knock Joseph Benavidez dead. Because the only person who's ever done that is Mighty Mouse. Joseph Benavidez, besides Dominic Cruz and Demetrius Johnson, is pretty much perfect in this MMA game. So I tend to lean towards Joseph Benavidez in that co-main event slot. And then there's also Jorge Masvidal versus Jake the Juggernaut Ellenberger. Holy shit, are you kidding me? I mean, this fucking card this weekend is stacked. 3 really quality fights. The main card's good too. These fights are stacked. The next week's fights are stacked. And then we got December 30th, the return of Ronda Rousey. Oh my god. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week recapping the Ultimate Fighter finale. Oh my god.